Welcome to Legacy Boxing Showcase in New Mexico, sponsored by Legacy Boxing Promotions. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, joined by my co-host, Austin Killeen. And Austin, welcome. You know, you and I have talked about this show for about a month now, so we've got a lot of things to cover. But one of the things I wanted everyone to know is we're going to be covering, of course, local boxing, but as well as the state scene. And the state scene, you know a lot about the state scene. Locally, you know, we had the Battle of the Brave here November 11th, and we'll go into some coverage of that briefly here in a few minutes. But statewide, talk about, you always mention Hobbs, New Mexico, and the cards that they have down there. Isidro Castillo does a great job of promoting. So mention Hobbs, New Mexico, and that's a corner that a lot of viewers may not know about.
Well, if it wasn't for Isidro Castillo, there'd be no boxing in southeast New Mexico, and he draws crowds. He'll put 1,700 people at one of his fights, so he's very successful. A lot of his fighters come over the border from Texas, so he has to draw from there. But his shows are very successful. His own son is undefeated, and he'll be fighting undefeated Brian McLean on the 27th in an excellent fight. They're going to be fighting at Buffalo Thunder, and it's going to be interesting. Their styles are different. They're contrasting. McLean's a brawler, where Steele Jr. is what I call a boxer puncher, and I expect that's going to be a very exciting fight.
You know, you mentioned Brian McLean, of course, the son of Sean McLean. Talk about that a little bit. Of course, Sean McLean is one of the best boxers we've ever had come out of the Duke City, and he's been training his son Sean, I believe, now for at least 5 years, maybe longer. Talk about a little bit about Brian McLean and his style as opposed to what his father was like.
Well, I never saw a film of the father, and the son, his style is probably a lack of a style. It's like somebody you'd meet in an alley. He's a brawler.
Comes forward.
Right, and he takes you out of your game. And his last fight was against Frankie Quintana. Very exciting fight. And for the first time in his life, he threw a left jab. And it's a good thing he found it, because that wound up in a 4-round draw. Very exciting fight.
Now, you mentioned the fight card at Buffalo Thunder. I believe it's January 27th.
Correct.
By Holmes Productions, put on by Holmes Productions.
Yes.
We did ask Pat Holmes, the promoter of the card, to come on with us, and he was unable to, at least for this show. Maybe we can get him on for a future show along with Mike Adams, the host of On the Mic with Mike Adams. We'd love to have him on as well. And there's going to be a lot of special. We've got two guests here waiting for us. We'll have Angel Pettis on our next segment, and then Josh Pitbull Torres at a later segment today. So a lot of things here to talk about. But before we do, I wanted to recap the Battle of the Brave, which again we mentioned November 11th. A 8-card fight that night at the Manuel Lujan building on the state fairgrounds. And let's go first fight by fight, and we're not going to cover all 8 of them.
Right.
Jordan Garcia versus Katie Ramirez was our first fight of the evening. And just a little history before we go into the highlights. Katie Ramirez and Jordan Garcia had been circling each other for a while. You know, they said some bad blood. We saw the weigh-ins, and Jordan Garcia was kind of up in Katie Ramirez's grill a little bit. Katie Ramirez maybe not as aggressive as Jordan Garcia. Jordan, oh my God, Garcia. Katie, Dynamite Ramirez. So that was our first fight of the evening at the Manuel Lujan building. And let's take a look at some footage that we have for you from that fight. There's Jordan, oh my God, Garcia dressed in the black. Boy, she was fired up. Trained by her father, I believe, Steve Garcia, is that right?
Right.
So she's fired up, and there's Katie Ramirez dressed in black as well. What was your thoughts about this fight, Austin?
Well, it's a fight that probably shouldn't have happened. There was a big discrepancy in weight. Under today's rules in boxing, fighters dehydrate going into a fight, and then they gain maybe 10, 15 pounds in the next 36 hours. Katie Ramirez, at best, is probably a 140-pounder. Where Jordan has fought around 160. So it's asking a lot for Katie Ramirez. She fought hard, but the size difference just wouldn't allow her to win.
And I think you kept saying that throughout the fight, along with
Right.
Daniel Pitbull Pettis was our broadcast team for that fight card, and you kept saying that as the fight went on and on. Jordan Garcia, the size, and you're seeing that in the first round. I think this is the first round
Right.
that Katie Ramirez could not overcome. Willing participant, never backed down, didn't really run. She couldn't really run far anyway. But Jordan Garcia, and as the rounds went on, that strength and weight really took its toll on Katie Ramirez.
I think Katie Ramirez's record is 0-2-1, but if they match her properly, I think she'll be a winner right away. And Steve Garcia's daughter has a good amateur pedigree, and her problem, the women's boxing divisions are very thin, so it's really hard to find opponents for these girl fighters.
And fighting there on the inside again, we're seeing, and we're seeing Ramirez, who came away with the unanimous decision of this fight, is just too strong, too big, too much for Katie Dynamite Ramirez. And so I love the shorts, or the shorts that
Right.
Jordan Garcia had. I really did. And against the ropes there, it's just no match. It comes over with a right there and another right, and just too much size. On the inside, she's just too strong.
But to her credit, Katie landed some clean shots, and she certainly wasn't looking to clinch. She was fighting back.
No, you know what, Austin and Daniel Pitbull, look right there. You're right, on the
Yeah.
inside man. And I'll tell you, she came at her with both hands, and you mentioned Katie Ramirez did land a few lefts there, and she's kind of unorthodox herself. A little push back there by Jordan Garcia. So let's go to our second fight now. At the end of the fight there, unanimous decision for Jordan Garcia.
Well, I'd like to say this is the first time I saw the fight, because that night, as you'll remember, a cameraman was standing right in front of me.
That's right. So for the first round, you really didn't get much of a look.
No.
So at the end of the fight here, and unanimous decision for Jordan, oh my God, Garcia. There's ring announcer Mike Adams, and so a decision for Jordan Garcia. Our second fight of the night was probably you mentioned maybe the knockout of the year. And let's take a look this fight was between Matthew Papitas Escobar and Christopher Russell. And you had mentioned, and let's take a real good look at this, because the first round you had mentioned Escobar had a long layoff. Go ahead, Austin.
Well, he's only had one fight probably in 5 years, and that was a few years back, so he's very rusty. But he's an undefeated fighter. In fact, his record is now
There's the
10-0.
knockdown there for Escobar, and you and I and Austin. Now, referee Rocky Burke, were you surprised that he let the fight go on?
Well, it will come up here. That part I wasn't surprised about, but the next part he called a slip.
Let's take a look at it. It's coming up. And again, Russell fighting on the inside, still hurting a stun right there. Now,
Right.
you still thought that's a knockdown. Rocky Burke's right there.
Right, but I think Rocky Burke's an excellent ref.
Okay.
In fact, we were talking this
Let's
morning.
take a look here, because here comes the knockouts coming up right here. Escobar has his head cleared by then. And what a spectacular knockout you're about to see. Still tying up Russell on the inside there. And Russell's thinking, I've got it made here. You're about to see a short left from Escobar.
Should happen here pretty
And
fast.
Escobar really cleared his head, Austin. He really did. There
Whoa.
it is, right there, short left, and that was it. Rocky Burke called him out. His head hit the canvas. Thank God. And let's mention too, Christopher Russell was okay. They checked him out in the ring, and that, of course, that's the first thing you want to look at. But what a spectacular knockout by Matthew Papitas Escobar.
You could watch boxing for the next 10 years and not see a knockout like that.
What does that do? And I'm going to ask you this, Austin. He's had the layoffs for 4 years. You mentioned for 5 years. What does this do for Matthew Papitas Escobar going forward?
Well, his record now is 10-0, I believe, with 6 knockouts. Obviously, he has some talent, and the welterweight division is loaded. And so he's got, obviously, some options. One of them would be, if they could make the fight, Antone Martinez, who had the other spectacular knockout this year up in Buffalo Thunder. And they're in the same weight division. So I don't know if that fight would ever take place, but it would be pretty exciting.
Looks like March 17th, and we're going to talk about the Legacy Boxing promotion, Route 66. What a great card they've got planned for you. We'll go all over this, maybe not today,
Right.
but it looks like Matthew Papitas Escobar will be matched against Benjamin Vasquez.
Who has fought Antone Martinez twice. So this will give us an idea of judging the two fighters, Martinez and Escobar, because Vasquez is from where they have the 72-ounce steak, and I can't remember, Amarillo.
Oh, man.
And he is
Yeah,
tough.
I know what you're talking about.
He is. A funny thing about Vasquez, he's trained by his son.
Really?
So, yeah, his son's a college wrestler. He's 19, and I thought he was fighting the first time
That
I
is-
saw.
When have you ever heard of that? Yeah,
I never have. So
Let's take a look at our last fight of the evening, and as we mentioned, we can't go through all of them. Let's take a look at some highlights of Matthew Diamond Boy Griego versus Alejandro Moreno. And you had mentioned, Austin, the Moreno, a cagey, wily, crafty veteran, and I thought Diamond Boy took him apart. Let's take a look at some action here.
Well, what's important, the other hot small fighter in New Mexico is Augustin Benitez down in Las Cruces. And I thought putting Diamond Boy against Vasquez, Benitez would be foolish. But after this fight, I'm changing my opinion. Diamond Boy really stepped it up. And although it doesn't show it here, he became the counterpuncher. He got Moreno to come after him, which took Moreno out of his style. And Diamond Boy can hit. He can hit with either hand. And he really hurt Moreno, where Moreno gave Augustin Benitez 2 tough fights.
Were you surprised at the stoppage? Were you surprised? I think one of the things that you and I and Daniel Pitbull Pettis said at ringside is that Moreno was still, he wasn't exactly defenseless, but he took some punishment in that 4th round. He did take some punishment. I think it was the 3rd round. They stopped him in the 3rd round, and going into the 4th. Were you surprised?
He could have probably come out, but he was taking a beating, and he probably, if they had kept fighting, he might have gotten hurt.
All right, we're going to have Angel Pettis in our next segment. Let's take a short break. We'll be back with Legacy Boxing Showcase after these messages.
Garden Sort's Team Sales is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Get into the game. Garden Schwartz Team Sales features fine products and apparel from Wilson, Schutt Sports, Speedline, and Russell Athletics. We offer custom embroidery and screen printing services for all of your school or club needs, from team uniforms to school letter jackets. Specializing in all sports and serving all communities, from big schools to small schools, from up north to down south, or all points in between. Garden Schwartz Team Sales. For great prices, friendly staff, and quality products, call Garden Schwartz Team Sales today at 1-800-880-7767. That's 1-800-880-7767. Since 1939, Garden Schwartz Team Sales is a proud supporter of New Mexico youth athletics.
The Barley Room, proud sponsor of Proview Networks for over 9 years, is pleased to introduce Black Iron Catering. From weddings and family reunions to birthdays and office parties, Black Iron Catering is perfect for any event. Contact Jamie at 505-459-8259 and book your event today. Black Iron Catering. Let us bring our kitchen to you.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walk up to the cashier, order up a root beer and a #1. Cover it with green stuff, 1 scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Carmody Medical provides solutions for your everyday needs. Hot and cold compression wraps provide therapeutic compression for the shoulder, hip, and knee. The therapy wraps are constructed of an insulated outer fabric and a ventilated cotton pocket to protect the body. Elastic belts allow mobility and deliver a gentle, adjustable compression. The reusable therapy packs can be removed from the pouch and placed into the freezer. Contact Jim for more information.
The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide Coaches Award Program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach. coach by coaching beyond the game. Hey, New Mexico, come check out the newly remodeled guest rooms at the new Wyndham Albuquerque Hotel and Conference Center, featuring 309 rooms, 30,000 square feet of meeting space. New Mexico's only indoor water park featuring the Wave Runner. 2,200 square foot fitness center with hydro massage chairs. Also enjoy breakfast at our new Manzanita Grill and watch your favorite team play at Altitude Sports Bar and Grill. It's all at Wyndham Albuquerque Hotel and Conference Center.
Welcome back to Legacy Boxing Showcase of New Mexico, sponsored by Legacy Boxing Promotions. I'm Ed Nunez, along with my co-host, Austin Killeen. Joined now in studio by Angel Pettis. Of course, you're Aaron Angel Pettis. You go by Angel Pettis, amateur boxer, going to make his professional debut March 17th at the Route 66 card, sponsored by Legacy Boxing Promotions. And Angel, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for taking time out from a busy Pettis Collision to be here, man.
Yes, sir.
Because every time we're there at Pettis Collision, you know, whether it's with Jordan or Aaron, you guys are just moving and shaking, and they're always so gracious about coming out to talk to us. There's some good people there, some real good people.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Austin Killeen, I'm going to turn some of this interview over to my co-host, and he's going to ask Angel Pettis some questions here.
Well, Angel, you're the oldest of the three fighting Perez brothers.
Yes, sir.
How old were you when you had your first amateur fight?
7 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, first amateur fight, 7 years old. I still remember that fight ended up being a draw. Cool little fight. It was, we're going at it from round 1 to round 3. It was cool.
And where was that? Where did it take place?
Salt Lake City Casino.
No, that wasn't a hometown fight.
No, they used to do a lot of fights there before here.
Right.
Yeah, so that's where I had my first one.
Well, I see your mother's in the studio. How nervous was she when little Angel got in the ring that day?
She always gets nervous. It's hard for her, but throughout my entire amateur career, she's been the same.
Hysterical.
Yeah, exactly. My 140th fight. I mean, she looked like it was my first fight. I mean, but it's rough for my mom. She's excited that I'm going pro. She's always been in support of me and whatever it is that I'm doing with this boxing thing since I was a kid. So she's always pushed me through everything. And
you obviously had tremendous success as an amateur. Do you remember the first tournament you won? And how old were you then?
I don't remember the first tournament I won. My dad, he would just throw me into these tournaments. I wouldn't even know there were tournaments. He would just have me in there, and I'd win. He'd be like, "Guess what? You're fighting the next day." And I'd be like, "What is this? What is this? What does this mean?" He was, "I don't know, but what do you weigh?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I believe at the time I was probably like, I believe I fought at 60 pounds, and he was like, well, when he had asked me that question, I'm like, I'm currently like 62. He's like, you need to drop 2 pounds, and those 2 pounds were tough. I mean, for a little guy, for 65 pounds. But yeah, I didn't know I was in the tournament. He was just having me go through.
First time I was aware of you, you went to, I believe, Alabama, and you won the National Silver Mittens Championship.
Yeah, it was for Junior Olympics.
That was very impressive.
Yeah, it was a long tournament. It was a tough tournament. I had state, region, and then I took nationals out there.
When did, in your amateur career, when did you first realize, actually I'm pretty good at this?
Well, it was tough. I would go to these tournaments like the ones my dad would have me into. So I would go, and I would usually end up quarterfinals, semifinals, even finals. And I would lose usually those last 3. So
but to get
I would make it pretty far in, and I mean, I knew I wasn't far off because the guys that I would lose to would end up winning the tournament, or these guys should have been guys that I should have beat or poor decision, but yeah, just I would go home, work harder, get ready for the next one.
Angel, I think you've had over 150 amateur fights, and that's a lot. And I'm sure that you traveled all over the United States to have these fights.
Oh yeah.
So, what does boxing mean? You started at 7. How old are you now?
20. I just turned 20.
So you've been fighting for 13 years. So it's part of your life, part of your DNA. The Pettis boxing, legacy boxing promotions is really literally part of what your family does. What does boxing mean to you? I mean, it's kind of a crazy question because people are probably they want to know the training, the diet, the running. There's so many things to get ready for any fight. So it's part of what you do almost on a daily basis. Tell us about it. I saw you the other day and you're eating some good food.
Stuff, yeah.
Tell us about that a little bit.
Some colorful vegetables.
Right. Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, some tilapia.
Yeah.
It's got to treat it like a lifestyle, pretty much. Because if you don't treat it like a lifestyle, you're gonna slip somewhere. Someone else is treating it like a lifestyle, and they're gonna get ready to come for that spot. Someone's always out there training. Boxing, I've lived the lifestyle since I was a kid, throughout elementary, middle school, high school, and I was always training. I wasn't really a regular kid, normal, as far as like routine and lifestyle, because I was always boxing. I was always in the gym, going out for sparring. While I was in school, I'd get home, do homework right away. My parents were on me about homework all the time, but yeah, it's a lifestyle. I've treated it like a lifestyle, and it's paid off. It's got me far places, and I'm turning pro now, so ready to open another chapter.
And you're a professional. Your opponent for March 17th is going to be
Levi Lucero.
Okay, Levi Lucero. What do you know about Levi Lucero?
All I know is he's got some fights as an MMA fighter. That's it. I haven't heard much. I haven't asked much. Just be ready.
Is your approach as a professional any different? Again, you've done this for 13 years, and you're going pro now. Is it any different than going up the steps as an amateur? I mean, it is your first professional fight. You're here in Albuquerque. You want to show, you want to showcase yourself. Is your approach any different?
Not really. I've always treated fights like if they were going to be like championship fights, no matter if it's like an amateur tournaments. I'd go to these tournaments and fight national competition, people that have taken their state division, their region, and have now been to nationals. I made it to the national competition, and the competition's real stiff. Everyone had the right to be there, and I was there for a reason too. So I just train. I just train hard for everything, and it's gotten me good places.
It sure has. It sure has. Austin.
Turning pro, you have a new fighter. Obviously, you want to bring them along slowly, gain experience.
Yes.
But that really doesn't apply to you. So what is the game plan for you? If you come up like a typical novice fighter, you're going to destroy people.
Well, I mean, I have a lot of experience. I've fought in nationally multiple times, internationally, and I just feel like everything will fall into its place. I have enough experience to where I figure a fight out throughout the time of it, and so I should be able to fill this guy out pretty decent, and start picking up the pace and start being more accurate and more active, and start landing those pretty good punches.
So are we going to see
shots.
you early in your career fighting stiffer competition than would be normal for new fighters?
I'm not too sure. Probably. It would probably be the case just because of my amateur background.
Like we have I don't know, you're going to fight a lightweight or featherweight?
I'm not too sure.
I mean, we have the ranking of the best featherweights, and literally, I'm not saying you'd beat them all, but you could literally get in the ring with them right now and be competitive.
Yeah, I'm in that division, man. I work with everybody here in the state locally for these fights like this, and everybody's pretty sharp. Everyone's sharp. Everyone's staying ready and waiting for whatever comes up next for them. So So everyone's in top shape. So anytime that I'm getting ready for something, these guys are in top shape to help me out as well. And that's it.
You know, Angel, I was going to ask you, in a typical training day, take us through, you know, you got to work too. People have to remember you have to sandwich your career as a boxer around your career. You do have a job.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Give us a
Yeah.
typical day of your training. You wake up at 5 and you go run, and you got to go to work. So give us kind of a typical day of a life of Angel Pettis training for your first professional fight.
Well, first thing in the morning, I start strength training Tuesdays and Thursday mornings. That's like at 7 in the morning, so I'm up around like 5, almost 6. So then I head out there, get my strength training done. If I'm not too beat up from strength training, I'll go run. If I do feel a little beat, then I'll relax a little bit, and I'll go run for maybe around 12 o'clock, let my legs rejuvenate a little bit, and then I'll go get that run in. But and then yeah, I'm at work in between all that, and then at 5 o'clock I go back to the gym, and I'm there till around 7:30 or 8.
Oh man, that's quite a day. And you start out early. Austin, we got about a minute left, so let's wrap up this segment with Angel. We'll get Josh Pitbull Torres on after this, but let's wrap it up good.
Well,
with
just a
Angel.
quick question. Your day is pretty full, yet I noticed you have a girlfriend. When do you find time for her?
She's I've been with her 6.5 years, so since middle school.
Wow.
So she's grown up throughout my lifestyle too. So she understands everything, and she supports me. She helps me with my dieting and all that stuff. Things like that. She's always been supportive of it. She's grown up with me through it. So, and then these last stages where it's getting bigger and bigger, she's stuck with it. So she's been real supportive. I appreciate her.
Well, if you ever need any advice, I'm sure Josh Pitbull Torres would be a good source of information.
He's got me.
Angel Pettis, outstanding guest. Best of luck to you in your March 17th professional debut. We sure appreciate you coming on.
Sweet. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
You bet. We'll be back to Legacy Boxing Showcase of New Mexico after these messages.
Don't sacrifice quality and flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network. Don't forget, every Proview Network sporting event is on sale at our DVD store. Go to www.proviewnetworks.com to buy your DVD today.
Folks, there's no other way but to be all in. Either he's Lord of all or he is not Lord at all. And you can experience the real and authentic, true life change that only God can provide to humanity. See, when we truly encounter Jesus and purpose to know him and follow his teachings, hashtag life change will occur.
Car Crafters, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Are you sure we're supposed to be doing this?
Don't worry, I've watched him do it 1,000 times. Come on, what's the worst that can happen?
No! Bad dog!
Hi, welcome to Car Crafters. What happened?
Don't worry, we'll make it like it never happened.
Car Crafters, it's like it never happened.
Ladera Golf Course. Open in 1980, Ladera features a full 18 including spacious greens, a large driving range, roomy practice putting greens, and 4 large lakes. Surrounding Ladera, beautiful views of the Sandia Mountains to the east and volcanoes to the west. Ladera is a challenging city-owned course with the longest playing yardage of any other city courses. For weekend tee times and more information, call 505-836-4449.
Sadie's is a proud supporter of New Mexico high school sports and athletics, and we here at Proview Networks would like to thank Sadie's for their continued support in helping us bring you all of your New Mexico high school sports coverage.
When I train for American Ninja Warrior, I schedule regular workouts to stay in shape. To keep my car in ninja tough shape, I head to a Napa Auto Care Center for regular maintenance and genuine Napa auto parts. Like brakes and batteries. I trust my Napa Auto Care Center for quality parts and quality service. And with the 24-month, 24,000-mile nationwide warranty, I drive away with peace of mind every time. Visit AutoCareNM.com to find a location near you.
Welcome back to Legacy Boxing Showcase of New Mexico, sponsored by Legacy Boxing Promotions. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, along with my co-host, Austin Killeen. And now in studio with us is Josh Pitbull Torres, record of 16-6-2, 8 KOs. He'll also fight at the Route 66 Legacy Boxing Promotions on March 17th. His opponent will be Morris Rodriguez. Hey, Josh, man, thanks so much for coming in.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we sure appreciate it. Josh, first of all, your opponent, Morris Rodriguez, then I'll turn it over to my co-host, Austin Killeen. Your opponent, Morris Rodriguez, for April 17th. You know anything about him?
I know he's a rugged fighter. I know that his record's a little deceiving, but I know that all of his wins are pretty much against undefeated or with winning records. He only has one of his wins that had an opponent with a losing record. So I know that this guy isn't coming to turn over and give me an easy victory. So I got to prepare like any other fight, and that's what I plan on doing.
I think one of the things, I think his record, as we see it here, Josh, is 7-10. But one of the things that we saw, and you saw too, with the last card at the Battle of the Brave, Stephon McIntyre, Anthony Hill, the Tavoris Teague, their records weren't great, right? Okay, they weren't great, but Anthony Hill was so hard to hit, Tavoris Teague, hard to hit, Stephon McIntyre. It was funny with Stephon McIntyre. He had the gloves up, you know, with Jason Sanchez in that fight, and he really wasn't active. The last 10 seconds is like he got a burst.
Right.
But those records, as you mentioned, are deceiving because they're veteran fighters. They've been in the ring and they know what to do. So I'm guessing that Morris Rodriguez, even with a 7-10 record, don't be deceived by that.
Absolutely. And his last victory was actually a knockout win over a fighter that had a record of about 10-2, which is a good record. So, I mean, we're not overlooking anybody. We have to prepare for it like we always have done. And like you mentioned, some of these guys with these kind of records are the most dangerous because they don't have a lot to lose and they have everything to gain. They're one win away from you know, a big fight with someone else. So I have to prepare myself.
That's right. Okay, Austin, go ahead.
Well, this Morris Rodriguez, he's had his whole career on the road. So when he comes in on March 17th, if the fans boo him or don't show much respect for him, it's not going to face him in the least. So Josh is going to have to fight, and this is what you want.
Exactly, yeah. I'm at that point in my career where I need these kind of fights. I need tough fights to prepare me for, you know, the bigger fights that I feel like I have planned in the future.
Now, you just came back from Philadelphia, and you were sparring with a pretty decent fighter. Why don't you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, I just got home from sparring with Danny Garcia. He's preparing for Brandon Rios, so we're down there in camp with him, helping him get ready for, you know, Rios's rugged, tough, coming forward style. So, I mean, it was a great experience.
Sparring with him, this must do a lot for your confidence, or destroyed it, depending on how these sessions went last week.
No, it went great. Being in with a world champion like Danny Garcia, being able, you know, to dance with the best of them just makes me feel like I belong where I'm at. I've earned the right to be there, and you know, it was an honor to share the ring with a world champion like Danny Garcia. So it was awesome.
So, I know we had talked in the past, and one fighter in particular, Sean Porter, you were talking about, and it was interesting hearing your take on Porter, because that could be a future opponent. If you wanted to, in case someone didn't read my column, if you want to mention him a little bit.
Well, there's a lot of great fights that could be made in the welterweight division. It's a pretty deep division. I mean, we're always just one phone call away from a big opportunity, and we just have to keep fighting on these local cards. I've been blessed to have Legacy Promotions put me on these cards and give me that, you know, opportunity to keep building my winning record, and then hopefully those bigger fights with the Sean Porters and those kind of names will continue to come.
Well, we lost the paper here earlier, but we had a list of opponents that you fought. We had 9 fighters. When you got in the ring, there were at best a 50-50 chance you could win. And I think that's probably the reason why you're so tough. There's 3 fighters that stand out in New Mexico, you being one of them. You're Fidel Maldonado, who you spar with all the time, and then Austin Trout, who I've seen you work with.
Right.
And I don't know who number 4 is, but there's a huge gap. Why are you willing to get into the ring and take chances like this? And a lot of fighters, they just don't take that next step. I don't know. They got nice records, but so what motivates you to take the risk and your 2 peers?
Well, one of the main reasons is I've never really had an advisor or a manager to lead me throughout the way, so I've kind of done things on my own. And it's been risky, but at the same time, as you mentioned, it's made me the tough fighter that I am. I've never been stopped, I've never been put down, but I've always been tested, and that goes to show in the bigger fights that I have. I think it shows, you know, that I've paid my dues and I've earned to be where I'm at right now.
You know, Josh, I wanted to ask you this. You just mentioned going to Danny Garcia's camp, and you know, Brandon Rios, man, that guy is one tough customer. What's the? I wanted to ask you first question first. What's the preparation in the Garcia camp? And you mentioned being in the ring with the world champ, and of course his father. We know his father can be very volatile sometimes. We've seen it. He's going to protect his fighter. He's going to protect his son. There's no question about it. And even Danny Garcia said, "That's my dad." He doesn't worry about that. I've seen his father and say some things, but his son always has his back. Always has his back, and without yelling and screaming, he lets his dad do that. So what kind of environment was that to be part of that?
It was amazing, man. It was cool. It was different. Angel, he's a wild guy, but he's always himself. So it's always cool to be around real people like that. And they were good people, regardless of what you see on TV. They have good hearts. They mean well. And I mean, they're training hard. So I'm excited to watch that fight take place.
The other question I want to ask you is this: is that, you know, you don't have a promoter, or you know, you pretty much do this on your own. Josh, I got to ask you, you know, and you know this as well as anybody, man. Going forward, boxing can be. It could be a treacherous business. I don't think there's any other way to say that. You
right.
know, it can be. Austin knows the fight game. He's been around it 50 some years. He's seen Rocky Marciano. You know, he's seen some things. It can be, you know, it can be like that. Yeah. Does that concern you at all going forward as far as the business side of boxing? Does that concern you that you don't have anybody that promotes or manages? You know, that it's just you. That, you know, somebody might try to take advantage of a Josh Pitbull Torres. Does that concern you at all?
It doesn't concern me at all because I've dealt with it my whole career. I'm used to it by now. I think what I'm concerned most about is using my experiences and, you know, learning from these bigger camps like the Danny Garcias and all these fighters to just pass it on to the next generation of fighters like young Angel that was on the show earlier, to show these guys that there is a right way to do it, and, you know, if they take the right path, that they can be successful. And I just want to use my experiences to help them. I think I've done okay for myself as a professional. And, you know, from here on out, I just want to, you know, share that success with everybody else.
Here's the other thing, and one more question before I send it back to Austin. You've got a lot of Albuquerqueans here. You've got Matthew Diamond Boy Griego. You've got Angel Pettis, Christian Cabral, Brian Labala Mendoza. There's so many Albuquerque fighters here. So success hopefully breeds success. You guys can all, you know, maybe share in some of that. You might have to fight each other along the way, but I think Albuquerque's, you know, again, a pretty good spot for boxing. Johnny Tapia, Danny Romero, Sean McClain, Bobby Foster back in the day, Holly Holm. You know, we've had some world champions here, so maybe you can spread that love to the rest of the Albuquerque crew that you got here.
Absolutely. And I mean, again, I got to give a huge shout out to Legacy Promotions and Pettis Boxing for putting these cards on and giving us the opportunity to shine like we do, because without them, it wouldn't be possible.
That's absolutely true.
To follow up his question, I think of Chavez, Duran, Mike Tyson, between them, they easily made $200 million, and that's probably conservative. They're all broke. So you're trying to make a living. If you are successful, how are you going to avoid winding up like them?
Well, I've always been taught since a young kid how to use my money wisely. My mom is a CPA, so she's pretty good with numbers. She's always taught me well. So I think that I'd be able to make some good investments. And then being in camp with Danny Garcia, I seen a lot of things that he was doing outside of boxing. He has a lot of businesses down in Philadelphia, so that was pretty cool to see something like that and to know that there is, a life outside of boxing, and it's, it's good information to take in and to be able to pass on, and hopefully, pass it on to my sons in the future.
Okay.
The other thing I want to ask you too is you're also a father. You're a father. Your young son's name again?
Julian.
Julian.
I have two sons, Julian and Princeton.
Let's make sure we mention both of them. Princeton's how old?
He'll be a year this weekend.
Congratulations on that. And I think, as mentioned, Austin has a 38-year-old son. My son is 25. So being a father and training in boxing, you have to wrap a lot of stuff around that because you're training. You're in a fight mode. When you're in a fight mode, I'm gathering it's much different than a training mode. I'm sure it is. Everyone has their mode. I had my mode when I was a basketball player. He had his mode. But I'm gathering that when you're in training for a fight, you're in a different mode.
Oh, absolutely.
So as a father, how do you balance all that? Because I see you with your kid, man, and he's right here in studio, and he adores you. You can tell that.
Right.
So how do you wrap all that around, all that responsibility and balance?
Well, to be honest, it's not that hard to do. They're always involved with me, and I take them with me to the gym. They're there all the time. They motivate me. They make it worth it. I feel like I'm having a tough round, and I look over and see them in the corner, and then it pushes me to fire harder. So I've never excluded them from a training camp, so it hasn't been hard to where I have to spend time away from them. I've always had the ability to bring them in with me in camp, and they've always been there every step of the way, and that's how I plan on continuing to keep it. Just keep them by my side and have them see me working hard, and to see and to show them that when you work hard, it pays off.
Now, I was going to ask you this again because, boxing is a tough business, very tough business. He mentioned Chavez, Duran, Tyson. Tyson actually made $300 million, and Don King took a lot of that.
Yeah.
That was later proven that he did. We got about 2 minutes left here. So would you want? Now, this is a question I don't know what the answer is. You may say no. Would you want your kids to box?
Would I want them to? No. Will I let them? Absolutely. If they find it in their heart that that's what they want to do, I'll support them 100%. But I'm never going to be that father that pushes them in the gym and says, hey, you need to try this. If they want to do it, though, they have my blessing.
Be up to them. Austin, we got about a minute left. You want to wrap up one more question with Josh Pitbull Torres?
Going back to the purses and your income, why don't these fighters get advisors? Because you mentioned your mother, but they would seemingly have exposure. I see Floyd Mayweather with Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world. Do they ever listen to anybody? I don't know who you've met in your own career, and I'm just always, it's something that's gone on forever.
Well, it's a hard question to answer. Not all fighters are blessed with that opportunity to have advisors. Some people just have to learn on the job. That's something that I've done in ways. So, I don't know. It's just how it goes sometimes.
Well, I hope you make it and keep it.
Yeah.
Josh Pitbull Torres, 16-6-2, 8 KOs. Next fight against Morris Rodriguez. That will be March 17th as part of the Legacy Boxing card at Route 66. Thank you so much, man, for being our guest. What a well-rounded young man you are. Mom and Dad must be two darn good people, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We'll be back to Legacy Boxing Showcase of New Mexico after these messages.
Christy May's restaurant is locally owned and operated with a family-friendly atmosphere. Their array of homemade comfort food is just like your mom's. From homemade chicken pot pie to their famous chicken salad on a croissant, Christy May's even offers lunch catering. Christy May's restaurant is located at 1400 San Pedro Drive, Northeast. They offer drive-in, carry-out, and catering. Open Monday through Saturday, 10:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Terry Cosper Insurance Agency is a proud partner with Proview Networks and a proud supporter of New Mexico high school athletics. Terry's been a local farmer's agent for over 20 years for auto, home, life, and business insurance. Just like high school sports are important, so are teen drivers. For more information, call Terry or one of his licensed staff members at 898-5556. Quotes are available for you.
Is this my car?
State Farm knows that for every one of those moments,
This is ridiculous!
there's one of these.
Is this my car? What? This is ridiculous.
This can't be happening!
This can't be happening.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Shut up.
Shut up!
That's why State Farm is there, with car insurance for when things go wrong, but also here with car loans to help life go right. State Farm.
Talk to State Farm agent Marty Size or Michelle Rudolph in Albuquerque today.
For 55 years, people have bought trucks from Tillery in Los Lunas. We have a great selection of vehicles, the quality service department, and some of the best deals in the state. But most importantly, we found people prefer to buy trucks from people who actually drive trucks.
Tillery is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network. Locally owned and operated, located in Los Lunas, right off I-25, exit 203. Don't forget, every Proview Network sporting event is on sale at our DVD store. Go to www.proviewNetworks.com to buy your DVD today. Gecko's Bar and Tapas, a proud supporter of Proview Networks. It's been a fan favorite spot for food lovers and sports fans. With not one, but two great locations, including outdoor patio, an atmosphere you won't want to miss. Gecko's, off Academy and in Nob Hill.
Locally loved restaurants like Farina Pizzeria, Farina Alto, and the Artichoke Cafe are the perfect venue for your next event. Farina Alto has traditional Italian food, plus handcrafted cocktails in a beautiful Northeast Heights location. Farina Pizzeria with a downtown vibe, amazing affordable wines, and local beer. And the Artichoke Cafe has set the standard for casual fine dining since 1989. Visit our family of restaurants and see what fine dining is all about.
Ladera Golf Course. Opened in 1980, Ladera features a full 18 including spacious greens, a large driving range, roomy practice putting greens, and 4 large lakes. Surrounding Ladera, beautiful views of the Sandia Mountains to the east and volcanoes to the west. Ladera is a challenging city-owned course with the longest playing yardage of any other city courses. For weekend tee times and more information, call 505-836-4449.
Turbo Threads is a proud sponsor of Proview Networks.
Almost 30 years of experience means fast service, great prices, and a wide selection of apparel from t-shirts to performance sports shirts, even jackets and hats. They feature low minimums and no setup charges on most orders. Turbo Threads is located at 1503 Golf Course Road in Rio Rancho, or find them on Facebook, online at turbothreads.com, or call 999-1234 for Turbo Threads.
Welcome back to Legacy Boxing Showcase of New Mexico, sponsored by Legacy Boxing Promotions. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, along with my co-host, Austin Killeen. In the first segment, or the second segment, we had Angel Pettis on, and in the last segment we just did, it was Josh Pitbull Torres. And I'll tell you what, Austin, it's my first chance I get to meet either of these young gentlemen, and Angel Pettis, what an impressive young man. And it's funny because he's a little nervous. You know, he's 20 years old. He's a little nervous, but I told him afterward he did great. You know, they're very humble. Both of them are very humble. And Angel Pettis, again, you know, Pettis by the Legacy Boxing Promotions. You've been to Pettis Collision more than once. And I think that, gosh, those guys are busy, man. They're so busy. And, you know, every time you see them, but they're always so gracious. And I said that to Angel about coming out, hey, Austin, hey, Ed, let's go over there and talk in the corner. And meantime, they're doing quotes, estimates, busy, honest, good, hard-working people. I can't say enough about them. I don't know them near as well as you do.
Well, I'm embarrassed because they'll always go, sir. I said, sir, I just call me Austin. You know, but that's the way they are. They've just been raised to be so polite. And what else can you say? You'd like to have them as your own kids.
Well, you know, we mentioned in the first segment, Angel Pettis making his professional debut March 17th on the Legacy Boxing card. It's going to be at Route 66, and I will be covering that by you, myself, and Daniel Pitbull Pettis again. And, you know, it's funny that the first fight that we covered, the Battle of the Brave, and we had never worked with each other, you or myself or Daniel Pitbull Pettis. And I thought it went pretty well for our first fight. We all played off each other well. when we got the cameraman out of your way for the first fight, then everything kind of went smoothly downhill. What a fantastic fight card that Legacy had at the Battle of the Brave. It sure was. We enjoyed it. Every fight we enjoyed. It really was. And I think for me, I've never had a ringside seat. You've had several. You've had several throughout your life. That was my first time at ringside. And it's much different watching it ringside than it is being back in, back 3 rows. I think some blood actually hit us because I remember you said, was that blood? And
well, I'm wearing one now, one of the first fights I did. This is an old jacket, and there's blood probably on it. I can't see it because it's got red thread.
Austin, I want to go over this, because a lot of people don't know your background. You're from Boston. You got that Eastern accent. I always tease you that you sound like one of those gangsters from The Departed, and that's affectionately teasing you, Austin.
I don't mind. I don't mind at all.
Anyway, give us a little bit of background about your boxing career. And you turned pro, you told me the other day, at 34 years old. So give us a little bit of your history in the fight game.
Well, my father told me to go to bed. I had just turned 8 years of age. I was in 2nd grade. And he says, I'm going to wake you up. And he mentioned Joe Louis. Well, there was a comic character called Joe Palooka. I don't even know if you're old enough to remember it.
My dad used to
comic
mention
books.
Palooka, the Palooka.
Yeah.
I used to wonder who that guy was.
So I come down, and my living room was packed with cousins and relatives. We had one of the first TVs in our neighborhood. It was a 12-inch Admiral. And no one had television then. We did. I was lucky. And Joe Louis defended his title against Desert Charles and lost. And in the 3rd round, my mother realized I was watching the fight, came running in, and all of a sudden we had a preliminary fight between her and my father. And of course, he didn't want to lose face in front of all his friends. And of course, the fight went on for the full 15 rounds. So that was my introduction to boxing, and I loved it. Then I got my first pair of boxing gloves when I was 10, and no one would box with me to my own age, so I'd always box kids older than me. So my record wasn't very good. I was like 0-30.
So you're living where now?
This is in Springfield, Mass, the other end of the state. But I did get into Boston.
Of course, the home of the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Springfield. Yeah. And I always liked.
Got to get out there. Got to go see that. But you're fighting some pretty tough kids over there, man.
So then I got in. Eddie Owens was ranked 3rd in the world, and I met him, and he invited me inside the gym, and I trained with him for 4 years. I was a sparring partner, and I got an opportunity to turn pro. The fighter fell out of a fight who had knocked my spleen out. Ironically, in the gym, I lost my spleen boxing. So
oh my goodness.
So I said,
oh man, you went back for more.
Yeah, I said, well,
wow.
When I woke up from the operation, the fighter was at the foot of my bed. This is like riding a horse, Austin. We got to get back in the ring, otherwise you'll never do it.
The fighter that knocked your spleen out was at the foot of the bed, telling
me we got
to. What was your response, Austin?
Before I could answer him, the guy in the next bed, are you crazy? So anyways, he didn't go through with his pro debut, so I took his place. And after fighting all these fighters in Eddie Owens' gym, my opponent I didn't think it was a very hard fight. I was lucky. And I had a pretty successful career fighting. And I just loved it. And marriage basically killed my career. I had the semifinal in the Boston Garden under Marvin Hagler.
The old Boston Garden.
Right. And my wife killed it because I was coaching. I would have left coaching at 5 in the afternoon, drove an hour to Lowell, the train. I wouldn't have been home before 9 at night. So I pulled out of that fight, and that's my one regret boxing, because I think I could have beaten my opponent, but he was 10-1 with all knockouts, and it would have been a great opportunity for me.
Now, what year was this?
That was probably, I still fought after that. That was probably in 77, 78.
Because you mentioned Marvin Hagler. Was
right.
Marvin Hagler on that card?
Yes, he was the main event, and I was going to be the semifinal against a fighter by the name of Ray Farrell, an ex-Marine.
My goodness. Wow, that stretches back, of course, Marvin Hagler winning the middleweight championship against Alan Minter in England in 1980, was it 80 or 70?
80, maybe 81. Because he had to fight with Vito Antuofermo first.
Oh, my goodness. 2 fights. Was it 1 or 2?
2 they fought. The first one was the 15-round draw, and it was terrific. And my first, before I turned pro, the week before I turned pro, I was in the gym with Hagler. And they wouldn't let me spar with him. They asked me if I wanted to, but they wouldn't. They changed their mind. At the end of the first round, he's sparring with Matty Ross, who was a heavyweight, and Hagler's 160. And the best way to describe Hagler, take 200 pounds of steel and put it in a 160-pound bag. That's
What was that? That is.
That's how he looked.
Tommy Hearns broke his right hand on that head, right on that steel head.
So they they sparred the first round, and the bell was going to ring for the second round. And Matty Ross says, "Where is he?" And then we're all looking around because he wasn't in the ring. He was on the floor doing crunches for the entire minute. And then he sprints in and he starts sparring Matty the second round. Needless to say, you want to psych a guy out. That did it. So Matty Ross couldn't believe that this guy just did 60 seconds of crunches. And he did that after every single round.
Talking about
Hagler. He'd jump out of the ring and on a wooden floor do crunches. He was just in amazing shape.
Trained by the Petronelli brothers.
The Petronelli brothers were amazing. Yeah,
Petronelli.
they were amazing trainers.
I think, to this day, now, you and I are going to talk about old fights because that's, I remember to this day, I think, and after Hagler lost to Sugar Ray Leonard in 1987, really never got over that. I think he moved to Italy, never came back, is that right?
Well, he has property in the White Mountains, and he's held on to his money because we were talking to Pitbull about all these fighters who've made millions and are broke. Hagler and Leonard both have their money.
They took very good care of their money.
Very good. He had a lawyer, I forget the man's name, but he did everything for Hagler. He looked at every contract he signed. And Leonard also had an advisor. Once again, my memory is killing me here. But he also had a lawyer, and they left boxing rich men. And they'll be that way till they die.
They had said that Leonard, I think it was lawyer, was Mike Traynor. Mike Traynor was Sugar Ray Leonard's lawyer, and had made sure that Sugar Ray Leonard hadn't even touched the interest from his first fights. So, and Sugar Ray Leonard had a divorce, which you thought, might have cost. He was married to Juanita Leonard, and you thought that might have, you didn't. That's one guy I got to say this because I was a Duran fan, and I never liked Leonard. But I got to say this: when I saw the 30 for 30 no mas, it showed me a whole different side of Sugar Ray Leonard. Whole different side.
I see him, I go up to the Hall of Fame in New York quite a bit. And in fact, I'm a judge. I'm one of the people who votes in the people to get into the Hall of Fame. And he is so friendly, his arm will fall off shaking hands with any and everybody. Marvin Hagler, I've seen him literally not give people the time of day.
Really?
Yeah, he says, I've seen him on TV saying how he's hands sore from shaking hands with everybody, but I have never witnessed that.
Interesting.
Clay Moyo is a beautiful boxing writer. He wrote a book about Sam Langford, who we were talking earlier before the show about Jack Johnson. Well, Johnson wouldn't fight Sam Langford, this tremendous black fighter, never would give him a title fight. He, you talk about black fighters having a hard time. No one gave him a harder time than Jack Johnson. Sam McVeigh, Joe Gillette, and Sam Langford were the top fighters in the world, top challengers for years, and none of them could get in a ring with Johnson. He wouldn't fight them. Kept fighting all these white guys.
Interesting. See, that's a part of boxing history that, of course, Johnson fighting that fight in Cuba, was what, how many rounds?
26th round he got knocked out.
In 1909.
Something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jess Willard? Was that
Jess Willard.
Yes.
That might have been a little later than I think, because he had an interesting fight.
Got about a minute left, Austin.
Well, they needed a white hope, and Jim Jeffries came out of retirement. He had never lost a fight. Lost 100 pounds, got in and fought Jack Johnson, and Chris Johnson beat him. But,
that old black and white, those films, gosh. Jack Johnson, the only guy charged with the Mann Act. We'll have to talk about that at another show. But Austin, let's give thanks to Angel Pettis, also Josh Pitbull Torres. Thanks to my co-host, Austin Killeen, for a first show. I thought it went real well.
I'm very happy.
For producer Josh Brown, I'm Ed Nunez. We'll be back next week for another segment of Legacy Boxing Showcase of New Mexico, sponsored by Legacy Boxing Promotions.